Lynsi Snyder grew up in California. Her grandparents opened a single hamburger stand in Baldwin Park in 1948, and 3 generations later that stand became In and Out, with its red and white drive-thrus and the palm tree printed on every cup, maybe the most beloved brand the state ever produced. She is worth more than $7 billion. By almost any measure, she is California. And in the summer of 2025, she announced she was leaving. Not the company. Her. Packing up her family and moving to a town outside Nashville, Tennessee, because, as she put it, raising a family in California just is not easy anymore. When someone whose whole identity is tied to a place loads up the moving truck and drives east, it stops looking like a personal choice and starts looking like a pattern. So this is the real story of who is leaving California, who is staying, and why the truth behind the headlines is more complicated than it looks. It starts with a single figure, released on the first day of January, 2026. The California Department of Finance reported that the state's population had fallen to just under 39.6 million people, a decline of about 54,000 residents over the year. Against a state of nearly 40 million, that is tiny, a fraction of 1%. But the direction is what shook people. It was the first annual population loss after 3 straight years of growth. For most of its history, from the gold rush to the aerospace boom to the Hollywood sign in Silicon Valley, California only ever got bigger. The arrow always pointed up. Now, for the first time in a long time, it pointed down. But the simple story falls apart fast. The decline was not mainly Californians fleeing, it was about who stopped arriving. In 2025, legal international migration into California was cut by more than half, dropping from around 248,000 people the year before to about 126,000, after federal policy slowed legal immigration at the borders and the airports. State analysts say that without that change, California would have actually grown by about 66,000. For decades, a steady stream of new arrivals quietly replaced the residents who moved away. When that inflow was turned down in Washington, the math finally tipped negative. Still, the other half of the story is very real. Domestic outmigration, Californians packing up for other states, reached about 288,000 in 2025, and that number went up. You can see it on the freeways, in the lines of U-Haul trucks, and the out-of-state license plates from Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. So both things are true at once. Fewer people arriving and a steady current still heading for the state line. The question is not whether people are leaving. They clearly are. It is why. The first answer is the one almost everyone who leaves mentions first. The cost. California has some of the most expensive housing in the country, street after street of million-dollar homes, paired with some of the highest income taxes in the nation, and gas station prices that sit well above the national average. The same paycheck that buys a small condo in Los Angeles can buy a house with a backyard in Texas or Tennessee with money left over. For people who came here chasing opportunity, the cruel irony is that opportunity now often means leaving to afford the life they wanted. This is not a story about people who hate California. Most of them love it. It is a story about families at the kitchen table doing arithmetic. And in the last 2 years, that arithmetic gained a frightening new variable: insurance. For a long time, homeowners insurance in California was a quiet line item, a few $100s, automatic. That world is gone. Wildfires rewrote the entire equation. Since 2015, the state has seen 15 major fires that each destroyed more than 1,000 buildings. Together, those fires killed 174 people and burned more than 55,000 structures to the ground. Insurance companies looked at the smoke rising over those ridgelines and recalculated their risk, and many did not like the answer. Some raised premiums sharply. Others stopped writing new policies in fire-prone neighborhoods or pulled out of the state altogether. Homeowners who had paid faithfully for decades opened non-renewal letters at the mailbox. By the state's own count, more than 1.5 million homeowners now sit in wildfire-distressed areas or on the FAIR plan, the insurer of last resort, which usually costs more and covers less. You can love your home, you can afford your mortgage, and still be forced out because you simply cannot insure it. For a lot of Californians, that letter in the mailbox, not the moving truck, was the moment they knew they had to go. Then came January 2025. The wildfires that tore through Los Angeles that month became the most destructive in state history. The Eaton and Palisades fires raced through entire communities, leaving rows of chimneys standing over ash, and you can see the toll directly in the population data a year later. Los Angeles County, the largest county in the entire United States, lost about 64,000 people in a single year. Some of that was the normal flow of families moving inland toward cheaper suburbs. But much of it was simpler, people whose homes burned and who could not or would not come back. The clearest snapshot is the coastal city of Malibu, where the population fell by nearly 10% in 1 year. When the drone cameras fly over those blackened hillsides, over the empty foundations where houses used to stand, the abstract statistics suddenly become very concrete. A population decline in a place like this is not a spreadsheet. It is a street of empty lots. If this breakdown is helping you make sense of the headlines, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep making careful, data-driven stories like this one. Now let us talk about the companies. Because there is another exodus running in parallel, and it leaves a very different footprint. In 2024, Chevron, one of the oldest and largest corporations in California history, announced it was moving its headquarters out of San Ramon in the Bay Area all the way to Houston, Texas, shifting all of its corporate functions toward the Houston skyline over about 5 years. Elon Musk moved X and SpaceX to Texas. ExxonMobil had already consolidated in Houston. One by one, the marquee names that once defined California business chose somewhere else. They tend to cite the same things the families do, just in corporate language: taxes, regulation, the cost of operating. California, for its part, had even sued Chevron and other oil companies over climate change. Each side has its own version of events, but the practical result is the same: corporate headquarters and the high-paying jobs and tax revenue that come with them packed up and headed east. And that is what makes the In-N-Out story land so hard. Because In-N-Out is not an oil company, it is comfort food, trays of fries and burgers under warm light, the taste of coming home. When Lynsi Snyder announced she was personally relocating to Franklin, Tennessee, and building a new eastern headquarters there, she went out of her way to reaffirm her love for California and promised the bulk of the stores would stay. But her reasons were striking precisely because they were so ordinary. There are a lot of great things about California, she said, but raising a family is not easy here, and neither is doing business. That is not the language of an activist or a politician at a podium. That is a mother of four and a chief executive naming the same two pressures, cost of living and cost of doing business, that show up in nearly every other departure story. So is everyone really leaving? The honest answer is the part most of the viral stories skip. No, not everyone, and not everywhere. While the coast and the biggest cities lost people, large parts of California actually grew. The Central Valley and the Inland Empire, the more affordable inland regions, gained residents. Placer County, northeast of Sacramento, was the fastest growing county in the state. The city of Roseville added thousands of people amid new housing construction, and Sacramento County grew too. That is not a state being abandoned. It is a state rearranging itself, people leaving the expensive coastline for somewhere they can still afford, and very often not leaving California at all. And the scale matters. Even after this decline, California is still home to nearly 40 million people, still the largest state in the country, and one of the biggest economies on Earth, larger than most nations. A loss of 54,000 people in a state that size is real and worth taking seriously, but it is a warning light on the dashboard, not the engine falling out. California is being squeezed from several directions at once. Housing that too few people can afford, an insurance market buckling under a hotter, drier climate, a business climate that competitors have learned to undercut, and a federal immigration shift that, for the first time, stripped away the quiet inflow that always hid how many people were already heading for the exits. Whether this is the beginning of a long decline or just a hard chapter, the state adapts through is the real open question. California has reinvented itself many times before through earthquakes and recessions and droughts, and it may do so again. But the next time you see a headline shouting that everyone is fleeing California, picture Lynsi Snyder on that highway to Tennessee. She did not leave because she hated the place. She left while still loving it, with the heart of her company right where it started. And that, in the end, may be the most telling sign of all. Thanks for watching. If you want more careful breakdowns of the stories behind the headlines, you know where the subscribe button is.